Okay. I guess we should introduce ourselves first. I'll go first. Pikanjo, also known as John, and with me is Bree. Is that what I call you for short?
Famisato, Famimatsu, whatever is open on a site. You got one of two.
Oh, Fami for short. Famisato.
Works. Fammy or Brie.
Sammy
Or
or Bree?
Fam.
Fam. Okay, fam. So yes, I did do a little podcast because we both like talking about cartoons. Is there anything that
Oh,
strikes you? Like, what was your favorite one probably growing up that you remember most vividly?
uh, hmm.
Or even you maybe
That
have revisited since then?
I'd have to say that my first, absolute first favorite cartoon probably would have been Rugrats, which I actually did revisit recently. And oh my God, does it hold up? It's bizarre, and I don't know what the problem is with them obsessively putting the cameras in the mouths. Like, oh, we're just going to show you the shot from the uvula, and it's like, all right, Klasky Supo, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you go ahead and do that every 3 episodes. No, the humor totally holds up. Aside from that, probably Angry Beavers or Notoriously, especially Notoriously now, Powerpuff Girls.
Hmm. That's funny because you mentioned those three. And those are actually three cartoons I didn't have the pleasure of growing up with. I didn't have cable at the time. This is before internet really became a thing, and so I didn't get to watch some of these cartoons. But it's
What did you
interesting to
grow
hear
up
your
with?
take on that. It's just like, oh, really, Rugrats? I mean, I always hear great things about it, and I've only seen very few, and probably some of the first movie, but that's about it.
It's definitely worth a watch. It's got that 90s Nickelodeon thing going on where it isn't quite sure what it wants to do half the time, and it's got the surreal, gross out humor here and there because Ren and Stimpy was part of its lineage as well because that was one of the first Nicktoons. But no, it's worth a watch. It has some solid writing. Just after the first movie, that it's got that post-movie rot that even SpongeBob had for the longest time. Don't bother with it. Watch seasons 1 through 3, or seasons 1 and 2 are really good.
Is it?
Season 3's
Didn't
okay.
it also get a spinoff? I don't even know if they were in like maybe high school. Could be may have gone too far. I don't recall what it was. All grown up or
Rugrats got a
something.
couple of spin-offs. The most known one is All Grown Up, where they did age them all up 10 years or something like that. It was based on the one special that they had
Oh,
because of Rugrats' 10th anniversary, the All Growed Up special. But
growed.
then it went so well that they're like, let's make a whole series off of it, and that didn't do too well. Lesser known is based on Susie and Angelica. I think it was called Preschool Days. I never actually saw it when it aired because I think only 10 episodes were made. It looks nothing like a standard Class K Supo show does. It's got weird airbrushing with the shading and the like. Uh, it didn't do well at all, and that's why no one remembers it. It's not good.
All right.
Don't bother with it.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of the ones that really stood out to me. I remember Smurfs really standing out. It was, I think, just ending when I started becoming conscious to, what was on TV and
Really.
cartoons. Yeah, that's which is just weird to think about it because it was, I guess, part of Hanna Barbera. I think it is. I'm not even entirely sure now.
I'm gonna look.
Peo, I can't even say his name right. Which obviously got all kinds of reboots and in movie form, I guess I should say. What I remember it being really weird just towards the end of the Smurfs is they did like a time traveling sort of way or device that the show kind of ended on. It was this, I can't remember exactly what it was. This little device that just had like I don't know. The Smurfs are it's like a bad winter and they find this frozen triceratops not too far from them. And
What?
yeah, I have not gone back to check out any of this to make sure it happens, but Papa Smurf shows that there's some secret corridor of the village that they can use to go back in time and take the Triceratops back to where it belongs. I don't know exactly what happens. Like there's some sort of malfunction, like somebody actually flips a switch, and a bunch of the Smurfs. Because unfortunately, the Smurfs changed from the episodes I saw from episode to episode. They all kind of fall in. They all go back in time to prehistoric times, and let's say it's something like crystals they put into the device, and the crystals are somewhat scattered, so they have to find them. They find them all in that one episode, but one gets destroyed, so they have to. I don't know how they jury rig it, but they get it so it essentially starts pushing them forward in times, like one, and that's what each episode was. They're like in medieval times. They're during the Renaissance. I remember one time in Italy because I think Chef Smurf helped out this guy make better pasta or spaghetti, I forget, or even pizza. And I guess the weird other thing was you saw some ancient version of Gargamel in all these episodes too.
I'm so glad that the Smurfs and Time Squad are part of the same continuity.
Oh,
Jesus.
well, that's something and I don't know. Whenever I see time travel come up, mostly towards the end of a show, it's kind of like a cop out. It's like, oh wow, we really don't know what we're doing. We're just gonna throw time travel in. And I don't know. I'd have to go back to look at some of the Smurf lore, but that seemed kind of out of nowhere when I think about
lore. Yes, the amazingly deep Hanna-Barbera lore. I'm waiting.
Oh, was
for
it
that
Hanna-Barbera? Did you look that up?
I had to look it up. It apparently is Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah. This is back in that's like late 80s. I don't even know what channel that was on, because at that point, I guess besides let's see, what cartoon shows? Yeah. I remember really watching more coherently was like the Fox Kids and then the Kids WB era, which was really interesting because maybe they did. Think more of like Tiny Toons. Tiny Toons premiered on Fox Kids and then got moved over to Kids WB because WB's like, hey, we got our own network now. We're just going to take this show back. I think it had run its course at that point, but I think, Animaniacs did start there, and then they did like another couple seasons on Kids WB. And those were essentially what I watched. There was one Saturday morning as well for Disney, so I remember watching a lot of those cartoons as well. It had a lot of solid stuff, and some stuff like, not for me, but I'll take it.
I remember those ones.
I remember like the 101 Dalmatians got a TV show, which they focused on Lucky, Rolly, and Cadpig. Oh gosh, I just threw out the names like that.
I'm surprised. The only one I ever remember is like Lucky and Cadpig. Did not remember Rolly.
Of the 100, I guess 101. There's those three. There's one of the Dalmatians like only had 3 legs too. I remember that showing up in the shows. It's just those weird things you remember about the cartoons, and I really like a lot of the Disney ones. I really enjoyed the theme song they've had for it. It was just, I don't know, upbeat, and it worked well.
But I actually remember a lot of those too, especially the Saturday morning ones, because as a kid, my dad ran his own business, and he had one of those like tube TVs with like the little antennas, and it was black and white of all things. So I had a little dial knob and all that, and this was in the 90s, so this thing was already old as dirt. When I would be stuck going to work with him on like a Saturday or whatever, because he'd open and we'd get out at like noon or something like that, I would watch those because, my antenna was able to pick up, like CBS or Fox or WB or whatever.
One of those like 6 channels that came in probably clear.
It was fantastic, especially as I started to get older and there was stuff like Pokemon and the like, and I was able to keep watching the episodes without having to be like, oh God, I don't have cable. Like,
well, yeah.
Luckily, things like Cartoon Fridays and the like were on Friday night, where I would already be home because it was the end of the day and my dad would be home or I would be at my mother's or whatever. And I'd be able to eat my dinner and then spend the next 4 hours obsessively watching one of these 2 channels. And God forbid it was a weekend where both of my favorite networks, Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, all had new episodes. And you're like obsessively like, oh God, which one am I going to choose
between
to watch?
channels?
And then picture-in-picture became a thing on one of my TVs, so I could watch a tiny version of one up in the right-hand corner with no sound, and then a big version of the other, and then if there was a commercial with one and not the other, I'd be like, oh, goodness, and then just click it over. For me, I want to play a video game. Then it was just like, first world problems.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I did have a black and white TV, too. I think it's set on top of the fridge. Sometimes I watch it in the morning, because as odd as it was, I think once it was on Fox or something, they had the Samurai Pizza Cats on, so that's what I would watch that on. As weird as that is, that's such an interesting odd little show they put on there too. In the morning, there's the other show I never think was Garfield at the time that was on.
Yes, we're going way back now.
I
I
know.
saw a lot of these things in reruns, but never when like they air
Well,
it
I don't
because
think I watched any of those when they were new. I mean, these were the cartoons they had on in the morning. I think they had which Sonic? It was the scratch and grounder version of Sonic the Hedgehog on. I
well, the
remember
Adventures of Sonic the
as
Hedgehog.
Adventures. That's right, and Sad AM as they call
Animation
it now.
fell from that in my
I
living
remember
room.
watching a couple of those. I don't know if they were new on Saturday mornings. It was just so early, even for a kid who gets up at that time to watch them. Be like, oh, I gotta
I
get up. I gotta watch them. It's like my job.
I actually caught a couple episodes of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show on PAX of all things when I was a kid because they were still showing reruns of that, and it was at like some god awful hour in the morning, like 5 in the morning or something like that. So I'd catch it, like either if I stayed up all night playing some like N64 or GameCube game because I was a crazy like 5-year-old, or if like I still had that oh, gotta get up and ready for school kind of mentality, even though it was like a Saturday. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to go back to bed. Let's see what's on TV. Oh, God, what do you mean Mario has a TV show? Why does he sound like he smoked for 5 years?
Yes. Hey, paisanos. Oh,
Years
I remember
later,
that
I,
being a
I
little
found
bit on.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's probably more of a. I guess it was also the Disney afternoon. That was probably the other afternoon thing I watched. With, gosh, I remember watching them when they were new. Darkwing Duck, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Goof Troop. Gosh, it's just funny. I think about all these shows now. It was just interesting because they took essentially their name brand kind of characters, gave them TV shows after the success of DuckTales, and well, for the most part, they did pretty well.
I'd say they did decent up until like the 90s ones where like
Yeah,
it
but
was literally X the animated series because
uh,
I specifically remember catching reruns of The Little Mermaid and that was okay,
oh
give or
yeah,
take.
that was like a Saturday show.
Aladdin. Aladdin
Aladdin
was
was pretty. I thought it was pretty good. Mermaid, wasn't really quite for me. Uh,
this one was weird. I actually only vaguely remember it because I think it had some like they touted like a prequel movie, but it was literally just the pilot of the show, which is like the same thing as what I think Return to Jafar was in regards to
yeah, in terms of
Aladdin.
quality, probably too. Yeah, which what really started their whole sequelitis, which we won't get into right now for all their movies.
We we can get on to that when we get into more of like a Disney topic.
All
But
right, yeah.
yeah, I would say because like I saw some of the earliest days of the Disney Channel.
Yeah, I didn't
Got
have.
cable.
I unfortunately just because when things were really starting to move the cable, or essentially network TV wasn't getting all the really good shows. Like I didn't really get to watch anything of like Kim Possible because at that point it went on to, that was a Disney Channel exclusive kind of show instead of a something they put on. I guess I don't know Disney at that point. Yeah, they still on ABC when when Saturday morning cartoons were still around.
I was
That
gonna say they
was
started to die around like the 2000s-ish
yeah.
era.
I remember that too. I mean, because WB was like the last bastion I had. I mean, that was really interesting too because we had Batman, Batman Beyond, Superman, and Men in Black, and it had some pretty good shows. And then I guess then it became CW, which I don't even know what that stands for to this day. And it
I
got so
don't know. And I'm
animified that some of the shows were like, "This is dumb. Well, I don't want to watch this." Like Sonic
like,
X, just like Kirby right back at you. Remember when that came on? Like, um,
really loved Kirby Right Back at You just because of how bizarre it was. It
Kirby,
wasn't
Kirby, Kirby.
exactly like I had actually just gotten my Kirby game by the time Kirby Right Back at You was about to premiere. I got Nightmare in Dreamland. You'd think I would have gotten like one of the NES or like SNES or even the N64 Kirby games, and I didn't. I only got my first one when the GBA was out. So I was like, what do you mean that there's like a show for this? Because like all GBA series, I guess you can call, even though the Kirby one wasn't really a series, it's just part of the Kirby franchise or whatever. All of them were getting shows, and that was like one of my first Sonic, because I didn't see Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog or Sad AM or any of that growing up, because I didn't know who Sonic was. My first Sonic game was Sonic Advance. But I played Sonic Advance, and then Sonic X was the thing. I played Kirby, and then Kirby Right Back at You was on. I was a huge Mega Man Battle Network fan, And then Mega Man NT Warrior was on. So that was the era of like I played the game and then I watched the anime. And it was weird. But because of how weird Kirby is and how DDD sounded and like weird Spanish Meta Knight, I watched it because I was like, this is so dumb. But it's dumb in a way where I'm enjoying myself. This isn't like Mew Mew Power, and that actually offended me because I was a Tokyo Mew Mew fan at the time. That was like baby's first manga for me. But that it was literally the era of here's the game, but the game's case has an advertisement for the anime that's going to air on like Fox Kids or WB or whatever because for kids. And I don't know, that's what I specifically remember about like the dying age of Saturday morning cartoons was it was a lot of anime, but it was a lot of anime of game properties.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess what's so weird is when Yu-Gi-Oh came on the scene, I didn't know it was a game, and I mean they made a game out of it afterwards. And I guess I thought the weirdest thing about it was like I'm enjoying this. Why am I enjoying watching them play this card game? And I was just and I really started enjoying it. Actually, I've never seen how the series ended. Of course, then I got a bunch of spin-offs, which I have no idea. But yeah,
I didn't follow Yu-Gi-Oh until like the abridged series came out because again it came out the same time as, well, or rather it got popular around the same time as when I was into Mega Man. So it was one of two things. Keep playing my Mega Man Battle Network games and sit with those kids at the lunch table or sit with the Yu-Gi-Oh kids and just I was never good at card games.
I
watched the reruns of the anime when it was on Cartoon Network like 5 years later, and I was like, what is this? What's happening? What is the Shadow Realm?
Well, that's where the cards go.
Why do all look like that?
Only game I ever played of Yu-Gi-Oh was probably the Game Boy Advance or the DS games at that point, because that was obviously a bit more manageable, but I never really cared much for the card game. Same thing with Pokemon. I liked watching the anime. It was a good way to know how to say the Pokemon's name, because I found that Lugia is not Lugia, and Scyther, I said it wrong, it's Scyther. It's just, you didn't know any better until the show told you. But yeah, that was probably the only video game for me was Pokemon that would, like, I played a game or actually watched the show, then I played the game and kind of went back and forth, and then I stopped shortly after Johto Juniors because it was essentially the same plot over and over, and I just got so bored with it.
I fell off on Johto Journeys because at that point I was getting older, and usually I would have stuff to do when it was on the WB because, they would just move around the time slot like it was nobody's business. But I would obsessively play the Gen 2 games, especially because now I had a clock function, and bug catching on the weekends was my jam.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that bug catching contest. Especially when that comes out pretty soon for the Virtual Console. I'm going to play some of that.
It's all over again. But, what was it? Everyone talks about the rumors that they had going to school, like the Pokegods or Peekaboo or whatever. But the rumor I most vividly remember, and this was, it was post Indigo League anime series, was people saying that since now shiny Pokemon were a thing, you were able to find the pink Butterfree from Bye Bye Butterfree while doing the bug catching contest. And oh my god, was I obsessed with trying to find this stupid thing. And then I found out that Butterfree's shiny isn't even pink.
And I'm sure it was.
I was
it's
horribly
like some
let down.
green in there, I think. But yeah. I hadn't heard that one. The one I'm most familiar with is, pushing the truck to get Mew. I know I tried that a few times.
I mean, that one was so notorious that they ended up hiding an item under the
just
truck
to be
in
like, hey,
fire red
here you
green.
go. I forget what the item was now.
Candy or something like that?
That or I swear it was a cookie. I don't even remember now. Cookies probably came a little later. I forget which one. Probably Gen 3. Well, yeah.
Lava cookie. I'm going to find out now.
Yeah, I'm going to go look. Let's see. So, now we've kind of got... Wow. It's such an interesting history. It's probably only about 5 years difference between us, but just the different cartoons and their impact on us. Let's tackle kind of a more... I don't know, would be a touchy subject or not, because I, for one, never really watched much of the Powerpuff Girls. The only one I think I remember seeing is, I think towards the end of Kids WB, they were showing shows from Cartoon Network. I remember I caught one episode of Samurai Jack. Unfortunately, I think they picked the worst episode of Samurai Jack to put on, and I watched it. I'm like, this isn't that great. And I don't know the title of it. It's, these yaks are enslaved by, I don't even know, these little gremlins, and Jack, frees them. And from what I heard, that's like the worst episode, and that's the only one I ever saw. And then before I guess the ending they made for it came out, I actually watched the whole thing. Like, this is a really good show. Why did they show me that one? But a little off topic there. But then they showed like a couple Powerpuff Girl episodes. The one I remember vividly is Mojo Jojo gets up. And, he's having his morning routine, but he doesn't have enough eggs, so he's got to go to the store. He keeps saying curses, and so he gets back home with his eggs, so he have a proper breakfast. And then the Powerpuff Girls hit a ball into his yard, so they got to get the ball back, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna the plot to get rid of him," but it doesn't work out at all. And I remember being really funny, and that's about my experience of Powerpuff Girls. I never grew up with it.
Honestly, that was probably a good see as a kid because I think that was one of the best ones. Sure, it wasn't like action packed. It wasn't like
I really enjoyed the humor. I didn't expect it, honestly.
Craig McCracken and his designs really lend well to his style of humor, which I think is one of the biggest problems of the current.
Oh.
Is that not only did they get rid of the signature style with the thick line, the UPA inspired style, and went with the standard thin line style because easier to animate, blah blah blah. They got rid of the sense of humor, really made the show what it was. So not only do the character designs no longer flow quite as well, like the girls aren't as dynamic, they're too rounded. In fact, a lot of their design aspects go against their original model sheets. There's no straights versus curves or anything like that. The sense of humor is too modernized for these characters and what their purpose was. Like Mojo being almost like this snarky, sarcastic, yet honestly not too street smart villain. And now he's just kind of like whatever. But like my best memories of the show, honestly doing something mundane, like breaking into the Powerpuff Girls slumber party or babysitting them and making them sushi, and they're like, God, we hate this, what's wrong with you? No, it wasn't sushi, it was like hibachi or something like that. Or he turns them into dogs or some weird, bizarre plot, but you remember it because it just wasn't done. Like, villains were like the Joker or Lex Luthor or something like that, especially when it's superheroes. But then there's Mojo Jojo, who is this completely out there kind of main villain, and he's a monkey of all freaking things with an exposed brain. He's trying to fight these like 5-year-old girls that were made in like the same incident that quote unquote made him, and he has no idea what he's doing. He thinks he's amazingly smart, but he's not. Rule the world by sneaking into these little girls' slumber party and stealing a chemical that gave them superpowers, and then I'm going to lose because all the girls at the sleepover are going to pillow fight me because I'm just that way. But now it's like, and all the girls are, I don't know, they're at school, and one of them gets in this bad group of like rollerbladers or something like that, and we gotta teach a moral lesson about not being a dick, and it's just there's no action. The powers doesn't matter anymore. They're all just hip and cool with the kids, and now we're going to make a fourth one, even though we already did that in the original show.
Yeah, I was hearing about that, and I didn't realize they did a couple episodes about someone trying to be a fourth Powerpuff Girl, and why there couldn't be a fourth one, or why there's, I don't know enough about it, obviously. And just before I go on, I know that Craig McCracken is not involved at all with the new Powerpuff Girls. Essentially, he doesn't own it anymore, and everything that's done is without any of his knowledge.
It's entirely
I shouldn't
true.
say knowledge. It's just he doesn't own it. Cartoon Network owns it now, and I don't know what they're doing with it.
His problem with syndication and is that once you sign over your intellectual property, it's It's gone. You can't do it anymore. And that was the problem with like continuing Motor City and stuff like that was it's just no longer your property. You can want to continue it, but only once in a blue moon can you. We were lucky with Samurai Jack getting an end, whether you like the ending or not, because usually things that are canceled are canceled. They don't continue
It's
unless maybe they get like a Dark Horse series or something like that. Or
did the original Powerpuff Girls have I guess, an ending before it went off the air, or stopped making new episodes?
original PPG ended not with like a big conclusion or anything like that because it was literally like a monster of the day
Well,
series.
right. I didn't know if there was
But
anything kind of grand, like, well, they'll always be here, kind of thing.
election, no, especially because we've had specials since then. There was like the Danced Pants special, which I believe Craig actually had something to do with. He was like some kind of creative consult or something like that. And there was some other special that was actually in the original style, but it was done in Flash. And for some reason there were memes in it. I remember specifically Mojo Jojo doing like the dramatic prairie dog stare. It was like a wacky
I
racist parody or
I've
something like
seen
that.
some critiques of the new stuff where they essentially just take such current things and become so it doesn't. It's just the show isn't really timeless anymore. It's just like, oh, that's funny, and then next year you won't remember this at all.
PPG. In fact, current PPG, Teen Titans Go, and Ben 10 all have this same sort of
Forgot
problem.
about Ben 10. That they keep doing that show again. I don't understand why.
Ben 10 will never die, but
I like the
Ben
original.
10 will be here beyond us
You mean like Scooby Doo?
for another day, because I have a lot to say about Scooby-Doo and not
Oh
many
yes,
things are
yes.
good. We all have this problem that webcomics have, and this is going into an entirely different medium. They will take, and South Park is part of this too, as well as New Simpsons. In fact, a lot of current entertainment is. They will find something that is popular, and because they are out of ideas, or because they're strip of the day, or whatever, they will then riff on that idea, either saying like, oh, this is stupid, or oh, look, we can do it too, aren't we cool guys? Like when The Simpsons did Pokemon Go, several months to a year after it already died. Then there's like current South Park seasons where they'll do something so incredibly current that it happened that week, but like 2 weeks later you don't even remember it happened. So they just wasted all that time and effort on something that people won't remember. They will have no connection to. And because animation is such a long process, while that webcomic may still be relevant for a couple weeks because they were able to, get it drawn and put up within a day's time, and it still won't age well because anyone going through the archives won't get it, animation will catch on to something, and then the episode won't be released until like a few months to a year later. So it's like, oh, look, we can dab. And then
I don't
8 months later, dabbing is cringy, or no one remembers it, or it's like, why are you guys using a dead meme? Twerking, too. They did twerking. They did lolcats. They did things that haven't been relevant in years, but they're trying to be like popular with the kids, and apps and blah, blah, blah. And it's a plague because like some things you can reference and it'll be timeless because the joke is funnier than the reference. Looney Tunes did that. A lot of Looney Tunes jokes are actually based on whatever was popular at the time, be it like an actor or a movie or whatever. But you'll more likely remember the Looney Tunes rendition because of how they pulled it off with the lead up than you would remember the source material. And that is not what can be said about current cartoons because they are such face value with no lead up, where after it's said and done, future generations are going to look at it and be like, what the hell is this? Because you need the previous knowledge to get it instead of there being a lead up and making it make sense in universe. And forced, it's terrible. That's not how comedy is done, and it's disappointing. And that's one of the biggest faults of new Powerpuff Girls, of new Teen Titans. And
They
new Ben
won't
10
touch
is just a
Teen Titans.
disaster.
Oh, I seen very little of Teen Titans Go, and I know I don't like it. And there's countless other people who've already said it's bad, and I just don't really want to talk about that one anymore. I never actually even finished the original Teen Titans because for a short time that was on Kids WAB. I got like the first 3 seasons, and I think they released 2 more, and I never saw how that went. So I need to catch up on that.
Original Teen Titans is pretty good. It too has that problem where like it never completely reached an ending, though apparently like WB is, they're
It's really interesting that they're
DCWB, but they're teasing more.
well. It's just really interesting because I was never a Batman fan until I saw the New Adventures of Batman and Superman, which is really just a fifth season for or fourth season for the Batman animated series when they were making the Superman series. Like, well, this is fun, and then I started figuring out the lore of Batman and seeing all the stories behind it. And now, since there's not really any show, although I hear that Young Justice is getting another season on maybe Netflix or something,
They are.
they're doing a lot of animated movies and essentially pushing the bar, if you will, on some of the stuff they couldn't really get away with on TV. And, you know, it's a lot of fun to see some of these stories. And I'm just surprised that that's kind of really taken off. I mean, it kind of started really slow, and then, a decade later, we're still doing it.
That the success of the continuation of Samurai Jack is going to do some really great things for more mature series that never found an ending, because pushing Samurai Jack's reboot, well, not reboot, more like continuation, revival,
Revival.
to Toonami Adult Swim was amazing, because we could get that darker, edgier theme,
Yeah,
the
that
essence
it
of
was
the original.
pretty. I mean, Samurai Jack was already a little dark. I mean, but yeah, that got pretty dark on a lot of stuff too. And well, who was it? There's another show I never watched on Nick. It was Arnold. I guess is getting a movie.
Yes, Hey Arnold, Invader Zim, and Rocko's Modern Life are
Oh
all
yeah, that's right. Rocko's Modern Life. They did like a current thing, and it was like, well, that seems to look just like it. And I'm not too familiar with Rocko's Modern Life. That's another show on cable I couldn't watch at the time. But what was the other one? I never watched Invader Zim. I know it's a sin, but I have not watched it, and I need to watch that at some point.
really good. It gets a lot of flack for being lol so random, but at the same time, if you actually watch the episodes like in order or whatever, you can make sense of it. Some of the jokes are a little bit out there because surrealist humor, but it's not as hot topic as people make it out to be. Like a lot of the quotes and stuff that Hot Topic puts on like their shirts and the like aren't from the show, and Gurr is pretty backseat in most of the series, so it's a nice watch. It's not like the number one show or anything like that, but I loved it as a kid, and for some reason I was made fun of for that, because why would you like that? It's so weird. But I liked the weird humor, and then as I grew up and people started to like it, even post-cancellation, if you people liked it before, we wouldn't have gotten it canceled, but whatever. I think it still holds up pretty well. You got to be in a certain mood for it. It's kind of like watching Ed, Edd n Eddy. Weird
Oh,
humor.
I never really watched that show either. I mean, it's all these like I grew up with SpongeBob either. All these shows I never really watched, and it's all my Twitter feeds filled with. So I don't even know what I'm looking at.
We're going to have to teach you some animation history,
Uh,
because
I know a lot of animation history, just not that one.
we're going to have to learn like mid-90s to early 2000s history, because that's my jam.
That is-
The birth and the birth and the continuation of originality with both Nickelodeon with their Nicktoons and Cartoon Network with their cartoons, beyond just Hanna-Barbera or what have you, or the Nickelodeon live action stuff, is incredibly interesting, because I was actually talking to my boyfriend about this before. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong or if this is just a personal opinion, because it is a personal opinion, I think the reason why people find 90s and early 2000s cartoons so interesting is because when they were made, these channels were still in their infancy. The channels did not know what was going to make it or break it. So there was a lot of testing the waters. That's why the first three Nicktoons were Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy, which were three entirely different things. One was pretty family friendly and based around babies. Another one was a slice of life based around this honestly pretty neurotic kid writing in his journal. And the third was complete insanity from the mind of John Kay, and it's pretty dirty, and I'm surprised it got away with as much as it did. birthed more things like, no, then we got Angry Beavers, then we got Cat Dog, we got all those crazy things, and then Cartoon Network decided we're going to make things too. We got Johnny Bravo, we got Ed, and Eddie, we got Powerpuff Girls. All these incredibly, vastly different things. You got an action show, you got just a comedy, you got a comedy based on a very perverted guy from the mind of Butch Hartman and Seth MacFarlane, which people will never admit to, but Seth MacFarlane had a lot to do with early cartoons. In fact, Larry and Steve, his original pilot, was shown on, I believe it was What a Cartoon.
I saw that one. That was just so interesting to see. Essentially, Peter and Brian before they were what they are.
But and we got those too. We got like What a Cartoon and what was the other one? There was one on Cartoon Network and there was one on Nickelodeon. What a Cartoon was on Nickelodeon. Don't remember what the one on Cartoon Network was because their names were pretty similar. I think it was Cartoon something. It might have actually just been called Cartoons. But so we got those, and you were able to what you liked, or they would look at, what got the most views or whatever. That's how we got Great Adventures of Billy and Mandy and Kids Next Door. That's how we got Fairly Odd Parents. That's how we got My Life as a Teenage Robot. We got all those crazy shows just because they were willing to try new things. And Cartoon Network was trying to do that again in like the late 2000s, but it never actually hit it off. In fact, Cartoon Fridays on Cartoon Network would regularly have this thing where they would air pilots and then let you go on their website and vote which you'd like to see as a real series. And that was freaking awesome. But now it's pretty much like you gotta know a person, you gotta be in the industry. Everything. The person who made this show boarded on this show. They were creative director on this show, and then this person who works on that show is now working on that show because they did something. This person who already had 2 shows is making another show. So there's a lot of fresh blood. I mean, this person might be getting their first show in their own name, but they've been in the industry for a while. So you start seeing similar styles because they've been working on shows that had X style, Z style, whatever. And that's also why we get a lot of the same voice actors like Tom Kenny and Tara Strong and yada, 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 because they've been in the industry and people know them. It's like, hey, you want to voice on my thing? Yeah. And that's why Jim Cummings is an evil scientist, again, on OKKO. And all I can hear is Dr. Robotnik from Sad AM because he's just the same character. He's also Pete from Goof Troop.
I remember most for Pete, but yeah, I don't want to get too off tangents. He's like one of the 4 voice actors you hear all the time.
It's not a Disney movie. He's a villain in something else. I mean, he was Cat from Cat Dog. And Tom Kenny is in everything. If you hear a cartoon, at one point I made a drinking game. It's like, let's just put Netflix on random, and every time you hear Tom Kenny, take a shot. No one did it because no one wanted to die.
I was so surprised that was him. He's having so much fun as Scaramouche. But yeah, he's everywhere.
Penis.
Wow.
Spit out my water. That was amazing. Oh, Tom Kenny said a bad word. The Samurai Jack. Oh, my God.
Samurai Jack. Oh, my God.
I mean, he was right, though.
They knew their audience was like, all right, we can do this.
It's Adult Swim. We need a dick joke somewhere. Yeah, anyway, that's just my personal opinion with why people so fondly remember, 90s cartoons, because it got bizarre. It was no longer about, merchandising, like in the 70s and 80s with, Transformers and Street Sharks and... It was
Biker
more
mice from Mars.
Yeah, crazy nonsense like
crazy, well, we didn't even mention turtles and all this stuff, but yeah.
Holds up on their own thing because they were a comic first, but
a
lot of the nostalgia was I had those toys and
let's just do it again. Yeah, what could go wrong?
Bronies were made.
There's so many. Say what?
Then bronies were made, and then everyone's like, "Oh, okay, there's a winning formula
here."
Here.
Just a little bit. I actually really like that show. It's something that I found that I enjoyed, and I think it was South Park that made me realize I love seeing the different personalities work off each other. And that's probably like with Cartman and Butters. Like, that's so different. And it's so much fun to see them, much like you see in MLP or in Rick and Morty. That's just the name of another show like that. It's just so much fun to see these personalities work with each other. I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty.
I do watch Rick and Morty. I'm actually a bit behind. I haven't seen any of the most recent season aside from the first episode because they aired it nonstop on, but that was, I just wanted to watch Samurai Jack and I wasn't able to see Samurai Jack that night. But yeah, Friendship is Magic is actually pretty good. I used to watch it when I was babysitting this younger girl. I was still in like
that was
early
the most
college
amazing
or
thing
something
about
like
it, though.
that.
It's like, this isn't cringy. What's going on?
It was enjoyable because like she loved it and I was like, oh yeah, this is actually something that I can find myself watching because it's decently animated for, Flash puppets.
Well, yeah,
And
I'm surprised when I look at it.
charming style. It's got Lauren Foss style, which is a lot like her husband's, Craig McCracken. That's why it looks very
The
like
powerhouse
Girlsy.
couple, yeah.
But it's mainly focused on the characterization. It's not like, oh god, we gotta push toys, like the earlier generations, which I honestly thought
Which
looked really
I
creepy.
couldn't watch. I don't know if I would even try.
I tried. I mean,
Because I think they made at least 1 or 2 movies before then. Of course, another movie's coming out, which I'm actually happy to see how they use the Toon Boom for that. Because it's just different than what they use for the show. Like, well, this ought to be interesting. And that's just what's kind of really nice about animation now. It's a bit more streamlined, which they kind of started in the 2000s, but now you can actually not just be this flat thing, which I didn't want to talk about it yet. I mean, but they're good. The next, I guess it would be the sequel to Magic School Bus is coming out another week on Netflix. And I don't want to judge it just yet, because I got that warm fuzzy feeling seeing the trailer, but it does look pretty flat. And I need to watch it to, an actual show to see how it looks. It looks like PBS flat to me, like how Arthur's dead now on PBS. It's so flat and lifeless. It's just not fun to watch. If you've watched any recent stuff.
because the last time I saw it was a couple of years ago and it was already pretty flat.
Well,
And I was like, I
yeah,
don't need
it's
that.
probably been that way for 5 or 6 years now. But I watched one, I'm like, wow, this is bad. Like, there was certainly a budget cut somewhere in here. Of course, it's PBS. I already feel bad for them, but yeah.
With Arthur going on for so long, you'd think that they'd put a big chunk of budget
Yeah,
in
that
it.
show's
but
still on. I'm
PBS
just
is-
surprised. Like 20 years, like they're getting Simpson problems now, or are they? I don't know. I'm not watching a lot of it. That's. I used to be the biggest Simpson fan. I haven't watched in about 5 or 6 years, just because
We're missing nothing.
I hope I'm not. I mean, I love the first 11 or 12 years of the show. It's just the best stuff. And I still watch it. It's like, this is still funny. There's jokes I didn't get as a kid. They're like, oh, that's funny. And I didn't get it. But now, no. People say it's topical, but they were topical then too. There was, it's a parody of The American Family, which they probably still do pretty well to an extent, but I don't watch it, so I can't tell you.
I'm beating a dead horse because everyone talks about The Simpsons.
I love their Halloween. Those are episodes. Those are probably the best thing to start off with. But anyways, sorry, go on.
Old Simpsons was topical in the way of like they would go towards some current event that was actually memorable, and their celebrity cameos would usually be characters, particularly, and everyone loves this one, the Michael Jackson cameo, where he wasn't even credited as Michael Jackson, but that whole episode is super memorable.
Was that really Michael Jackson?
Really Michael Jackson.
It really was? I mean, because I don't think... Yeah, I mean, if it's in the credits, I didn't see it, and I'd have to go look again.
Under his actual name. He's got like a pseudonym or like a...
Oh, okay.
author's
Okay.
whatever. I forget what the actual thing is called, but yes. So there are a couple of other examples, but celebrities would come in, they would voice a character, and then, that would be the character of the day, but it would basically be a Simpsons episode. They'd get that celebrity cameo, would be voicing X, Y, or Z character that would actually be used in the episode. Now the Simpsons have their celebrity cameos, and they're just the celebrities. And the worst part, in my opinion, are those celebrities don't fit the style. They go against that bug-eyed, like, Simpson style and try to do, like, an actual human-looking character. And
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
the squinty eyes, and they look more like anatomically correct. And it's really bizarre because it's just a style clash. It looks more like something that would fit better in Futurama. It's
Yeah,
more
because I
built
was.
around that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that Simpsons hold the record for the most guest stars on the show. They beat Saturday Night Live with that.
That's a problem.
And that's nothing but guest stars. So.
One episode, I don't think I've really heard anyone talking about it for a while, but this was around the time where I was like, man, I really don't need to watch Simpsons anymore. It was like Lisa went to summer camp, and it was like a music camp, and it was like the whole cast of Glee. The
Oh,
whole cast of
what?
Glee was a cameo, and I was like,
Oh,
all right, we don't need to do this.
I don't. I never watched Glee, and I don't think I'd really want to see that anyways.
High school, it was a big thing, and I was in like theater class, and I
You
was
mean
an
like High
extra
School
choir
Musical,
kid.
which I never watched either?
Watch High School Musical, the show, with more drama.
The movie. Yeah.
But yeah, because I was friends with all the theater kids, and I was the art kid, and I used to be a choir kid, everyone I knew was into Glee, and I was like, okay. And then it was in The Simpsons, and I'm like, no, okay, we can be done with this. But time where I was like, okay, Simpsons really needs to stop. Because now they're trying to be so topical that they're doing crossovers with other Fox shows.
Yeah, I
And
did. I kind of saw some of the Family Guy one. I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. I
Family Guy
guess I'm
1 is like
indifferent
the
to it.
antithesis of humor.
Yeah, it's. I guess that's what's interesting about Family Guy. It was just so different enough at the time, especially because the only other show that has made it was really Simpsons to be on, and it's like I really enjoyed it, and then it died, and it came back. I enjoyed it for a short time, and it just kind of got into stuff I didn't care about, and I stopped watching that.
I feel that. I
And
liked
I just
pre-cancellation Family Guy a lot, and then a little bit after that, and then they
yeah,
were
a little
like,
bit
let's be
after, pretty
edgy.
much, because yeah, it's just yeah, it's they're all so different, and yeah, too big a topic. I mean, we're already going on a while here, just kind of dabbing in all this stuff. Also, I don't even know where dabbing came from, but it's everywhere now.
I don't know. The only one I care about is Luigi because it feels like a Luigi thing to do. It's like, look, it's cool, and then he doesn't. It's like, Luigi, that meme's been dead for years. He's like, I
Well,
don't care,
yeah,
I'm cool now.
I don't know. I guess I saw Squidward dab, and that's probably all I know about it.
Well, years ago too, so
Well, I mean, it was a guy in a costume. I don't know about the actual cartoon, but yeah.
I know that someone made a fake screenshot where Squidward quote unquote dabbed in show, but it was a fake screenshot. It was very good though.
It was very convincing.
It was. People were like, when did this happen? It's like it didn't happen.
It did happen.
Good. Um, I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot of decent
We
bases.
did, yeah. So I guess if we do some more of these, we'll have to be a little more specific. But it's just interesting to see our take on. I mean, you have so much you talk about, and I don't know. I'm probably more of the older demographic to some of these things, and it's just so interesting. I mean, we even get into the 2010 cartoons, so I'll have to save that for later because I think we've hit another big stride in animation at this point. So
I
there are some duds, yes.
I would say the late 2000s, early 2010s when we were starting to hit that dead zone where even Cartoon Network was like, let's do real live action shows.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I'm like, wow. It's just that joke about MTV doesn't do music anymore.
Cartoon
Do they
Network,
now? I don't even know.
no, I don't actually get MTV, so I have no idea. I don't get any Viacom channels. I get
Oh,
everything
I
else.
don't know.
It's
I don't
something
even
on
watch
the
TV
cable.
anymore. It's mostly internet. So
I
that's
watch
just
Food
how far
Network.
we've come.
I watch the Food Network, and then I catch everything else on like Hulu or like Netflix.
I only watch like maybe some live action stuff like Elementary or I used to watch 5 That show was just it was fun when it started. Now it's dead, but that's not animation, so I better stop talking about it.
I mean, we can get into a topic of live action shows that we liked at the same time. That
Oh
that could probably
man,
be a different. Uh,
gosh, some of those Disney sitcoms. Yeah, I don't even.
They're cartoonish enough where I feel that we can talk about it and it's not going to be a problem.
No, okay.
Like any Disney Channel sitcom from like the 2000s is fair frickin' game. You could have made those a cartoon and they would have also been fine.
It would have been fine. We're just gonna do live action.
No, it's cheaper, I guess.
Like
Maybe.
maybe.
I don't know what they're paying their actors.
Yeah, I
know
don't
what
know
they're paying
what
their
the
voice
scale is.
actors. Everything is cheaper than The Simpsons.
Yeah, you're right. That's probably the most expensive one because it's what next year. I think that's 30 years. No, 2019 will be 30 years. Just because I happen to know it was 89 when they started their show. So
Long.
yeah, I remember a time I couldn't watch the show because my parents wouldn't let me because yeah, it's got some adult stuff in there, but it plays with it, so it's just
Because
so different. And now where we're at,
Dad didn't care that it had like the naughty humor or anything like that, so I was fine with being able to watch it, especially when we didn't have cable. But my mother watched it at the dinner table, so it was like whatever.
whatever.
Seinfeld. So I have a lot of memories of Seinfeld.
Oh, likewise. Well, that's probably a good place to end this first one. Any closing thoughts?
Seinfeld topic right now. If someone wants it, they can have it, but not right now.
Not right now. Okay. We can talk about Seinfeld. It's just like, well, we've talked about cartoons for a while. Maybe we should hold up back for some more later.
What can you truly say about a show about nothing?
Can't stand you.
The B movie, but it's actually Seinfeld. Yeah, I think we're about a good mark here. We didn't hit like a full-on topic, but we grazed a lot of things.
Yeah, I know we want to talk about some stuff specific, but it's just kind of fun to jump around here.
Some way to start it out, though. I mean, we can,
yeah. Gotta think of a name.
solidify some things.
Yeah.
A podcast, TBD, to be determined. I'm bad with names.
Oh, okay. Probably just stick with that one for now. All right. Well, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you guys next time.